Good day, fellow SORMA members. It is a pity I'm not able to attend this half-centenary in person. Herewith we present wildlife management success stories as far as it pertains to leopards in the Northwest Province. For years, there has been a fixation to purport on failed translocations of leopard, while of late there have been notable strides in improving translocation success of this species. As part of routine management, we aim to establish translocated leopards into stable home ranges where released. In this, our objectives were to determine home range stability and fidelity of both confiscated and orphaned leopards and examine whether they elicit natural behaviors as they do in the wild. As part of law enforcement operations, leopards were seized from perpetrators illegally keeping them, while some orphans were obtained as part of routine DCA work. Based on monitoring via camera traps, pre-weaned orphans were captured only if a mother was declared absent and if her demise was likely due to anthropogenic causes. Leopards were satellite collared for monitoring purposes, and they were kept in temporary captivity, particularly during the weaning phase for orphans, and releases were planned when old enough. In many cases, leopards had to be treated for injuries, whether this was from snares or tooth damage. We had a sample of 16 leopards to work from, half of which were either orphans or confiscated ones. As for release site choices, threats had to be nullified as much as possible, while there had to be sufficient prey and suitable habitat. Ideally, there had to be few conspecifics, as in other leopards, and low detections via initial camera trapping alluded to this, so we could earmark sites accordingly. Releases of leopard took place in the Western Kalahari, but mostly in the Magaliesberg in the east. The behavior of collared leopards was assessed by following up on GPS clusters to see what they fed upon, to rescue them when ensnared, or to examine their den sites. Attention was paid to whether prey were killed or scavenged, which was especially important given orphans would not have had the chance to learn to hunt from their mothers. The populous Magaliesberg's recreational attractions offered interesting scenarios when following up on these GPS clusters, to say the least. Standard home range metrics were determined for each leopard, and site fidelity was assessed by examining how far leopards settled from the release sites. The UDI approach was looked at for successive monthly home ranges, and these were benchmarked against a sample of resident leopards. Stabilized home range forming was regarded as a yardstick for success. Where outcomes were known, success was obtained for half the translocated leopards. Confiscated adults for some reason settled successfully where they were placed. Most orphans were successfully integrated into a population as subadults by releasing them near their natal origins. Of the 4 orphans, 1 had an indeterminate outcome, while a male and female were regarded as successes, while 1 male was regarded as a failure as he was killed before range stabilization. Compared to other leopards, orphans were more likely to scavenge and take livestock, which could be portrayed as risks to be considered by practitioners. Opportunistic phylopatry occurred, which is the phenomena where subadults settle where they grow up and don't disperse away. This was not ideal, but translocation can easily counter this. As for confiscated leopards, all 4, as in 2 males and 2 females, settled into stabilized asymptotic home ranges. So much so that the centroid of one of the females' home range was less than 1 kilometer from a release site, while she also reproduced within her core range. This same female endured a snare-related injury and was extricated via airborne immobilization and hospitalized only to be found pregnant and then re-released after treatment. Astoundingly, this female went on to produce her litter, with 1 known surviving offspring after a year, and if that wasn't enough, she went on to produce a second litter a year later. When benchmarking against residents, indices of home range overlap were initially low for both confiscated and orphaned leopards, but with time approximated that of residents. Decollaring was done after a year and a half, and leopards were recaptured in baited cage traps using their own kills. Confiscated adults were probably successful owing to good release site choices, as well as lengthy periods of temporary confinement, which may have broken the homing tendencies. Orphans were successful when released near to their natal origins, and these successes were related to mimicking the natural process of natal dispersal. It is thus recommended that translocations of leopards is best suited to subadult males, or any adult of unknown origin, mindful of ecological and genetic considerations. More accounts of successes, and especially failures, of leopard translocations should be documented from across the species range. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to thank all our collaborators.